The next thing I want to talk about today is the process of risk management. So there are 3 steps to the risk management process. The first one is risk identification. So had I taken the time before I ran my marathon across the Detroit-Windsor border, had I taken the time to step back and identify some of the risks that may happen. So one of the risks that are fairly common to runners is the risk of injury. And so, many project managers, good project managers, sit back and they identify as many risks as possible towards the beginning stages of their project. The second step to risk management is risk assessment. And this is where you start to prioritize your risk. And then the third step is risk response. So again, once you've come up with you've identified a list of risks, and again, using the running example, the risk of injury, when we think about risk identification, we're thinking of creating a list of all the risks that could occur during that project. The next step would be assessing those risks. So not all the risks in a project would have the same impact. And so coming back to my running example, the risk of injury would be pretty severe. So when we think about risk assessment, we think about 2 things. We think about severity, and we think about the likelihood of that risk happening. In terms of running, the risk of injury is pretty severe because it means that you may not finish your race, or you may never even start the race if you if you get injured during your training program. And the second aspect is the likelihood. The likelihood of getting injured is pretty high when you're training and even while you're running your race. And so that would be high up the list of risk factors. Recently I was running, it was raining, and so running in the rain causes chafing in various parts of your body. So wherever your clothes meets your body, you could have chafing if your clothes is wet. And so, but chafing is not that severe. The likelihood of it raining on the day of your race is not, it's not that high. And so you'd have the risk of injury pretty high up that list, the risk of chafing somewhere at the bottom. So once you've prioritized your risk in terms of severity and likelihood, the next thing is to develop responses to those risks. So obviously you'd want to focus on the risks with high severity and high likelihood first. Now when you're running, you look at so what steps can you take to mitigate the risk of getting injured? And some of those steps could be to make sure that you're getting your proper nutrition. Make sure you're following your training program. Make sure you see your doctor regularly. Make sure you're getting you're warming up and cooling down, stretching, and so on. So you've identified your risks. You've prioritized your list of risks, and then you want to develop risk responses to the risks that you have prioritized. So there, ladies and gentlemen, I've talked about risk management today. I've talked about why it's important. It puts the project management in a position where the project manager can take action to mitigate a negative consequence early in the process when it's more advantageous in terms of cost. And then I've talked about the 3 key steps to the risk management process, which is identifying risks, assessing risks in terms of prioritization, and then developing responses to minimize the negative consequences of those risks. So thanks for listening, and please look forward to my other videos where we talk in more detail about other different aspects of risk management. Thank you very much.